This episode of Gargalarg Philosophy, if I say it right. This episode of Gargalarg Philosophy included Code, Mike, and myself, Redundant, in which we discussed gaming, classic and recent. What's wrong with the Call of Duty series? What's right about all those special little games that you fell in love with at the beginning? I have a rant about Nintendo. That's something nice to have look forward to. And we actually give you a website to an amazing game that I love. Unfortunately, this wasn't a silly episode. This was quite serious, so we apologise for that. But to be sure, there'll be more silliness on the way.
Well, you played stuff like
a Spectrum and a
right?
what?
No, I've a Spectrum and Amiga.
What the f*** is that?
They're two different things. There was the Spectrum, which used cassettes, and then there's the Amiga that used floppy disks. And that was when the first graphic adventures were on. You know, like Monkey Island, Indiana Jones, all the LucasArts. That's when LucasArts was top dog in the game development area. That was.
And now you just don't really see them anymore. Like,
no,
the last game I played
LucasArts.
that was LucasArts was like Jedi Outcast on the GameCube.
The LucasArts' last good game was probably the Jedi Academy. All the rest, the Force Unleashed, are just bad. They're just bad.
Yeah, the Force Unleashed kind of goes against the whole idea of it. Like, the Force powers weren't supposed to give somebody God mode. They were just supposed to give them an advantage.
Yeah, they kind of screwed it up, and I've never played Force Unleashed 2.
No, the prequels 1, 2, and 3 screwed up Star Wars.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I played the demo for one, and it wasn't even like trying to somehow maneuver your way around and try and figure out the safest way to do it. It was just rampaging through hordes of stormtroopers with the Force powers.
That's what kids want these days. They want a hack and slash or a run and gun. Is really like every single game that comes out nowadays. You see like all the Call of Duties are all just run and gun. I mean, games like Rainbow Six Vegas and Arma 2 that are actually have some skill required and some like tactical teamwork, those don't come out anymore. And if they do, they don't do all that well. Because I didn't hear about Arma 2 until like 3 weeks ago.
You're right. It is It is kids like Call of Duty and in-your-face action. But that's not what I want. The one who actually has the money, to spend on games that I've grown up with. Gaming as my main hobby, and. You're right, you don't get games like, that ultra-realistic, like you said, like Arma, Red Orchestra. You don't get that many games that year because you die all too easily, and people just rage when they die.
And when I bought Red Orchestra, I don't know, I was probably in like grade 8 or 9. I bought it and I started playing it. Now I was just a kid that liked hack and slash and running guns then too. I started playing it and I was like, this is kind of ridiculous. And then I left it on my Steam account. Never played it till like maybe a month or two ago. I played it and I was like, man, this game is awesome. There's a tiny player base. Like they don't have thousands of players like Call of Duty, but I mean it's still a really, really, really good game.
Well, that's kind of how Tribes 2 is. Like if you want a game if you want a game where hitting a target actually requires skill, play Tribes 2 because it's nothing but trying to shoot people in midair at high speeds and at extremely long ranges.
Even Bad Company 2 was was more realistic than Call of Duty. I mean, 1, snipers actually meant something. 2, bullets had gravity.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for Battlefield 3 to absolutely knock Call of Duty off. It's not even a podium really. Call of Duty it's in all fairness, Call of Duty, it's a fun game, but it's not that good of a game,
Do you know what? It's redundant. It's the same thing. It's the same thing every new game they release it. I played Modern Warfare 1, Modern Warfare 2, and Black Ops, and they've all basically been the same. Sure, there's been little tweaks in game modes, like now you have your sticks and stones and your one bullet in the chamber, or whatever they call it. Sure, those are fun and all, but it's essentially the same game. It's just trying to kill it's a run and gun redundant video game.
It is. And you wouldn't have that when, you remember a game like Battlefield 1942?
That was so awesome.
That was an amazing game. That was going forward in the first-person shooter genre, because you had 64 players, right, battling it out, and I'm pretty sure they had a mod out that would increase server capacity. I'm pretty sure there was that. So you'd have these huge, massive matches where you could die from a stray bullet. You had artillery going over your head. You had tanks going down. People would hide behind tanks so they could advance. And I thought, yes, the future of first-person shooter is bloody amazing. But then Call of Duty, Modern Warfare came out, and they appealed more to console, and obviously because console can only have so many players on, and it's not as responsive as a first-person shooter on the PC, they decided to, okay, this is selling, we'll concentrate on that now. And every single game that comes out is trying to beat that field.
Well, it's kind of like what happened with Red Faction. First game comes out, makes massive sales, and then they just try and sponge it for all it's worth.
Call of Duty is a big sponge.
Oh man, that is the sponge. That is ShamWow of the video games.
I was just going to say it's a shame as well, because the first Call of Duty and the second Call of Duty were fantastic games.
Yeah,
amazing.
Canadians were in there. There was Canadians in there.
Yeah, it wasn't America. That was it. It wasn't America. I can remember Call of Duty. It was from the perspective of 3 different views, wasn't it? It was the Americans, it was the British, and it was the Russians. Do you remember doing Stalingrad on Russia? On Call of Duty. It was amazing. You don't get that now. It's just. It's ruined.
I don't think games like that, as lame as this sounds, you had an emotional attachment to that game. Games now, when you just run and gun, it's just like, oh yeah, I gotta get to the next rank.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's rank now.
You don't hear anybody sitting beside any games that come out now. Like me, I will never forget Final Fantasy IX and Okami. Those are the 2 games that I just will not let anyone talk bad about. But I honestly don't have any game that's come out recently that makes me feel anywhere near that, because they're just, you play it and you're done.
I'm quite emotionally attached to Oblivion. Also, when the new Donkey Kong came out, we were like, yeah, Donkey Kong, I fucking love Donkey Kong!
That's an interesting theory. That's an interesting point, though. What are your guys' top games of all time? And, if you do
that, when it comes to top games of all time and the games that people really stick beside, it's the ones way back when, like Super Mario and Sonic, stuff that everybody's played and everybody sticks to.